Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now today's episode, we're answering an interesting question. What happens if you overpay your credit card? Or, can you make too many payments on a credit card in a month? Those are the two things we're going to address. Of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. So first of all, we've talked about when to pay your credit card off just, from a standard perspective. That could be linked down below for you. But when we talk about overpaying a credit card, well, what do we mean by that? Well, every credit card has a credit limit. Say your credit limit's $1,000. Of course, you spend $100. You owe that card company $100. So you would pay $100 and pay that off, before the end of the grace period, and you'd be good to go, no interest. But what if you owe them $100 and you paid them $200? Like, why would you want to consider doing that? And what happens if you do that? Well, the thought behind it, the question that you generally see, the intention behind the question is that if I have a lower credit limit, like I know my U.S. Bank business leverage card is a $3,000 limit, and if I wanted to increase my credit limit to make a larger purchase without asking the bank to give me more credit limit, if I just paid $2,000 to the zero balance card, does that boost my credit limit up to $5,000 just doing the math because they're holding $2,000 for me? And the short answer is no, it doesn't do anything for your credit limit at all. Your credit limit is set by the lender. Only they can change it. Your credit limit is set. We call it the available amount of credit is what changes when you spend money and repay it. But the credit limit is set by the lender, and overpaying isn't going to help that. Now, some banks, their user interface represents this differently. So, Chase, for example, will just put like a negative. It's not negative in the sense that you owe it. It's almost like they owe you money. So if I paid negative $2,000, it would say, in red, it'd have like $2,000 in there. So, that money would be immediately applied to any purchases that I made. So in theory, you would think that, well, then it would allow me to spend past my credit limit because that is instantly going to apply to the charges. But it doesn't necessarily work like that, because what's going to happen is that, the point of sale machine, the bank is going to read, oh, we're being charged $4,000, and they're going to see, oh, we don't have, the credit limit's only $3,000, and they're likely to decline it right there on the spot. So it doesn't really help raise your credit limit at all. In fact, American Express has a credit intel page, what they call it, where they actually say this exact same thing. I'll put it up for you, but they say, hey, look, this isn't going to help your credit limit. It's just applied as a statement balance, so to speak. It's not gonna raise the credit limit at all. So, are there benefits of overpaying? Well, in my opinion, not really. You might as well hold on to your money as long as you can versus giving it to the bank and having it sit there. So I wouldn't necessarily, even if you anticipate you're going to make a large purchase. The only time I guess I could sort of see coming in handy is if you were going to make a large purchase towards the end of your billing cycle, and you, for whatever reason, didn't want that statement cycle to close with that large of a balance. So you send the money over there so it's already ready to be applied to that transaction. So you close with a lower balance, maybe making your credit utilization look better. But again, I don't think it really matters if you're going to pay it off by the end of when the bill comes due anyways. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, because then, as we say, the best type of money is other people's money, using the credit card company's money, not your own, just paying it back when you need to. Now, additional ways you can get almost sorts of an overpayment is, maybe you've paid off your balance and then you make a return. And, they're going to credit that account, just the same credit card. You'll just have, they'll owe you $100. If you maybe purchased something, paid it off, there's $100. Then you return it later, they'll just, put $100 credit on your account. Banks surprisingly make it hard to get a refund for it. They will do it, but it's not always easy to find, but they will do it. They would much prefer you leave that $100 over there and just spend it down, which is totally fine. You can do that. And if it's a card that you use very frequently, you might as well just leave the $100 over there. But if it's a card that you don't use infrequently, or you just want your money back because it's yours, there's a few different ways to do it. The easiest way is probably phoning in and saying, hey, I'd like this, refunded back. Chase used to make it for secured message, and they would just do it. They would either move it, they could move it to another credit card with an existing balance, which was helpful. They could even sometimes move it to a checking account. They've since changed, and now they sent me a form last time to fill out, and they basically just ACH'd it to me. It was weird. American Express buries it under I think you have to go under the settings where it's like, hey, I'm disputing a charge, and then finally there's one for like credit card refund, but you wouldn't think to look there because you're not really disputing a charge, you just want a refund. So chatting in or phoning in is probably the easiest way to do it, but they will return it to you, or again, you can spend it down. But again, the answer here is no, it's not going to actually increase your credit limit. And no, it's not going to it's not going to affect your credit score or anything like that either. There's not really a downside to it other than you're just kind of tying up your money longer than you need to. In addition to that, most banks will post a payment very quickly. Usually it's next day. In the case of Citi and American Express, one thing they do very well is that they actually they'll credit you like instantly for the payment if it's from like a linked checking account that's been verified, which is very helpful. Everyone else is usually like you make the payment like if you make it before a certain cutoff, they'll like the next day you'll have the credit posted to your accounts. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now, overall, there's one other thing here that kind of plays into this, and it's like, how many payments should you make a month, right? Now, ideally, you would only need to make one payment per month when your bill comes due. But sometimes, again, in the case of this U.S. bank card, they only gave me $3,000 credit limit, and I'm trying to pay homeowners insurance and property taxes, which are $3,300. Homeowners insurance for the rentals, like $1,400, plus other everyday expenses. So, like, I'm going to have to pay this down twice, maybe 3 times. And, that can be called cycling your credit limit, where, you spend it up to them just about the max, pay it down, and do it again. You're just cycling through it. That can sometimes be a red flag. I've never had an issue making a mid-cycle payment and then doing it again, but you can get to a spot where the issuer raises a red flag. I think I saw a person on Reddit say American Express locked their account because they made like 5 payments, but it was like 5 payments within like a day or two. What this person was doing was buying something, then immediately paying it off, thinking that they were just practicing the ultimate amount of financial responsibility. And to some degree, I see how that would make sense, and I applaud where their mind was at. Like, hey, I don't even want the temptation. I'll just pay it off immediately. But what the bank sees is like, well, that's very odd. Someone paying it off, especially paying it off before the charge even posts to the account. Because usually there's a day or two lag. So the bank can lock you out and say, well, we don't know if, you're linking a stolen account or what have you, and you're paying by ACH, and ACH payments can still be unwound after the fact. So the bank is still at some risk for this abnormal behavior that they don't understand. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Again, I'm doing it with the leverage card, but I've never seen an issue making 2 to 3 payments in a month. But when you're doing multiples, I would say try not to do it. But again, just to hit the welcome offer, having to make an extra payment to get my credit limit back up, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but that 5 payments in a day was definitely very excessive. Again, that's really the only time you'd want to do it, when they've given you a low credit limit. Because you would think the bank would be talking. You would think logic would win and the bank would say, oh, I've only given you a few $1,000s or $500 credit limit. Of course, you're kind of going to have to keep doing it. But unfortunately, most of that risk process is automated. And, they're not really taking into account, well, credit limit is this. So obviously they have to do this to keep using it. They're just really looking out for themselves. It can usually easily be explained away, or you can usually easily verify the other account. You own the other account by getting the other bank on the phone. It's just very annoying, but that's the only real use case, and I only very rarely have to go through that. So either way, that is the answer of what happens if you overpay your credit card, or can you make too many payments. The answer is don't really overpay. It doesn't do what you might think it does, and really there's very few reasons to make multiple payments in a month, again, unless you're trying to avoid a closing with a large balance, or you get stuck with a lower credit limit, like myself in this case. And again, if you get stuck with a lower credit limit, there are ways to have your credit limit increased, but usually it's going to take at least 8 to 12 months before of having that card, especially if you're early on, before you should ask for an increase, in my opinion. But by then, you'll probably have opened up so many more cards, it won't even matter. So there is that question answered. If you like this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every single week and right back every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. Of course, every single day over on profitablecontent.com, where we have the latest news stories, credit card offers, and bank bonuses. The channel's blog, always linked down below for you, and on the main channel page as well. Question for you guys is, let me know what you think about this. Have you built a strategy around this? And what other questions would you like to see answered in this series where I basically just go through Reddit, see what people are asking, and try to talk about it very quickly to add some context behind it. Could be the start of a good series, so I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you very soon in the next one.